Godzilla 1998 is not a bad movie. Now, before you start typing me death threats in the comments, allow me to at least explain myself. I'll start off by saying, yes, I do in fact like this movie. But when I say it's not a bad movie, I want you to just ignore that this movie is titled Godzilla. Now, I might be biased in my opinion with this movie, given that it was the first Godzilla movie I ever saw, and the film that got me into the franchise in the first place. But if you were to remove the title and ignore every single time someone says the name Godzilla or Gojira, you'd have at least a decent monster movie on your hands. But as a reboot, this film just isn't that great. For anyone who doesn't know or tried to bleach the movie from their memories, I'll explain the plot after a little backstory. In October of 1992, TriStar Pictures announced that they were planning to make a trilogy of films to bring Godzilla back, after his death in the much higher regarded Godzilla vs. Destoroyah. Matthew Broderick was cast as the protagonist, Dr. Nico, or Nick, Tatopoulos. He was named after Patrick Tatopoulos, the man who designed the 1998 variant of Godzilla. If anyone is unfamiliar with Matthew Broderick, he also starred in Ferris Bueller's Day Off as Ferris himself. He was also the voice of Simba in the 1994 Lion King. The film was directed by Roland Emmerich, who had previously directed movies like Stargate and Independence Day. So he probably wasn't the best choice to direct this. But anyways, Toho gave TriStar the rights to Godzilla, but with a few rules. Most notable and most important in my opinion being, he cannot look stupid. And to their credit, yeah, TriStar succeeded in making a nice looking Godzilla, at least one matching his new origin. Good work, Patrick Tatopoulos. Alright, calling this thing Godzilla is probably going to get me shot, so from now on I'll just call it Zilla, the nickname that everyone gave this variant, as it takes the god out of Godzilla. Alright, without further ado, let's get on to the plot. The movie begins with footage of an island being bombed by the French, with an iguana being shown before the bombs are dropped, with the opening credits playing over this. After that, we cut to a ship in the South Pacific Ocean, shortly before it's attacked by Zilla. We're then introduced to our main character, Nick Tatopoulos, who's digging up worms in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. He's then sent to investigate the wreckage of the boat seen in the previous scene. A whole bunch of exposition is shot at us before we see Zilla again. Nothing much happens for this attack, other than the main characters realizing, wow, giant monster in New York City. Now, I've heard some people criticize this film for taking place in New York, but I think it's an interesting setting. Zilla's size makes it interesting in that, as unlikely as it seems, he's able to hide in the city. But anyway, Zilla goes into hiding before being lured out by a massive pile of fish. And then this leads to one of the best worst scenes in the movie. The camera, for the most part, tracks Zilla as he runs through the city. Sounds like it could be fun, right? Well, it would be if the military were half competent in this movie. They're chasing this 60-meter tall monster through the streets of New York and cannot aim worth shit. Seriously, where did these guys get their training from? Fill up asphalt from Spaceballs? So this goes on for a little while and Zilla escapes because the military is less than useless. Through his research, Nick is able to find out that Zilla can reproduce asexually, meaning that he can reproduce without a mate, which leads to the final act of the film. Nick and everyone else who's important to the plot go into Madison Square Garden, where there are over 200 eggs inside, all of which are about to hatch. Is this an insanely plot-driven coincidence? Yes. But do I hate it? No. In fact, I think this is the most entertaining part of the movie. Maybe in part that my favorite movie of all time is the 1993 classic Jurassic Park, but I think the idea of a bunch of mini Godzillas, keep in mind that those are in big quotation marks, chasing a small group of civilians is really interesting and really reminds me of all the dinosaur chase scenes from the Jurassic Park films. There are some throwaway gags, like some passengers on an elevator opening the door to reveal a bunch of baby Zillas, only for the passengers to then nonchalantly close the elevator door, but I'll let it slide. After the main characters set up a broadcast explaining their situation, they get out and Madison Square Garden is hit by an airstrike, killing all of the baby Zillas, which leaves me one question. Did none of them leave the building? I mean, sure, the people inside were their food source, but they could have easily left and tried to find another food source. But I digress. Zilla sees that all of his children were bombed, and then turns his attention to the main characters and set up the most controversial scene in the movie. Zilla gets himself caught in the cables of the Brooklyn Bridge and is shot to death by the military, having finally learned to aim. And this is where Zilla earned his name. In the first film, Godzilla was killed by the oxygen destroyer, a weapon that was created specifically to destroy the monster. And in the reboot, Godzilla is defeated by being thrown into a volcano. Is the premise silly? Yeah, but it's a lot better than Godzilla, again, huge quotation marks, being shot to death. Before the movie ends, Nick stares into Zilla's eyes as the monster dies. He then walks off so the film can set up its cliffhanger. The camera travels through Madison Square Garden, stopping on an egg that somehow wasn't touched at all by the airstrike. The movie ends with Zilla's prodigy hatching, which led to a TV series which most, if not all fans agree was one of, if not the only good thing to come out of this movie. So, yeah, that's Godzilla 1998, a movie that, in my opinion at least, is ruined by its title. I mean, this movie has a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I feel is a little too harsh. The movie was also nominated for 5 Razzie Awards and even won 2, which is not a good thing. In fact, Toho themselves bought the rights to Zilla just to kill him off in 2004's Godzilla Final Wars. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie isn't great, but it's not that terrible. Like I said before, if you watch this movie ignoring the name Godzilla and Gojira, you could genuinely enjoy yourself. The movie is admittedly slow to start, but I think that its final scene in Madison Square Garden makes up for it. Now, I'm confident most people aren't going to agree with my opinion. That's perfectly fine. If you hate this movie for being a Godzilla movie, I get that. But I think if you just want to watch a monster movie that can be made in the late 80s, there's definitely a lot worse that you could watch. So that's my review of the 1998 Godzilla. Admittedly, it's a little short compared to any other review posted on the internet, and I don't know if I'll make a video like this again. I mean, yeah, it was fun writing it, and I liked expressing my opinion on it, but I just feel like it seems out of place with my other content. So yeah, the video's over. Go watch something else, and please don't send me death threats.